With our American neighbors once again demonstrating themselves to be unreliable trading partners and generally really poor judges of character, there's been a lot of renewed discussion in Canada about making other friends in the world who may be more interested in collective financial well-being for all. Much of that discussion centers around export markets for Canada's most deadly products, oil and fossil gas. I can hear the persistent whining from Alberta. We need an east-west pipeline, and one going north too. Please stop. This video is going to take a look at why any new pipeline of any kind is a bad idea for all kinds of reasons. Politicians of all stripes are saying that we need to build more pipelines. Conservatives in Canada, of course, want to build more, regardless of the threats from down south. But even the next Prime Minister of Canada, whomever that might be, says we should look at building more pipelines. There was a survey done by Angus Reid in January 2025 that found an uptick in Canada's support for the Energy East pipeline. And I understand why so many people are saying that, but it's a lazy argument. I think for a long time we've known that having other friends and trading partners in the world is a smart thing for Canadian business owners to think about. And even though the current government in the US will change again in 4 years, on the very surface of the issue for Canada, it sounds like a good thing to do. Build an east-west pipeline and one that heads north so that we can insulate our economy from the US, a country that doesn't really like to honor the agreements we have in place. It also sounds like a good idea to mainly conservatives and others who care more about oil and gas profits than helping to fight climate change. They think a new pipeline will help other countries stop using coal and start burning the far cleaner Canadian fossil gas and oil. The logic says that more pipelines will make trade with the US optional. And while I wholeheartedly agree that Canadian business should put itself in a position where we don't really need much from an unreliable neighbor, building pipelines is a really bad idea. There are two main reasons: economics and environment. Recently, in an article in the National Observer in February 2025, the CEO of Enbridge said that for that company to return to serious discussion of another pipeline, they would want environmental assessment legislation in Canada repealed, and the federal government essentially to drop all actions that are designed to reduce the extraction of these polluting fuels. In the article, he was quoted saying he'd want to see support for energy production rather than policies to reduce it, citing the carbon price and forthcoming cap on oil and gas pollutants as examples. Great! So Enbridge will play ball only if we all throw up our hands and cancel policies designed to enable us to have a cleaner environment. Enbridge isn't the only dirty corporation that doesn't want to jump back into the pipeline business, though. As cold-hearted as they are about climate change, they do see the economics involved, and they don't want to put their money into it. Of course, they're fine with the Canadian taxpayer footing the bill for the pipeline, though. Yeah, and that worked out really well for us with the Trans Mountain pipeline. Justin Trudeau agreed to use taxpayer money to build that beast. It went billions over budget because, of course it did, and we'll likely never see much of that money back. And for what? To try and make Alberta and Saskatchewan happy, of course. Remember the premiers of Alberta and Saskatchewan giving the Liberal government and the rest of Canada lots of appreciation for that? Yeah, me neither. Does the rest of Canada really want to do anything else for this gang of hypocrites? Look, the world is rapidly approaching peak oil. The International Energy Agency has forecast that to happen in 2029. Why would we want to put tens or hundreds of billions more into expanding capacity through new pipelines that would take, 10 years to build? While of course we should be all trying to get as far away from the American dumpster fire as possible, building more fossil energy infrastructure is not the way to do it. Can we please be smarter? The world's energy transition is already underway. Be happy with the astronomical profits Canada's oil and fossil gas industry has already raked in and continues to rake in, and get on with moving to a cleaner future. That dirty industry that's changing our climate right here in Canada isn't going away anytime soon, but let's stop its expansion. Someday Alberta and Saskatchewan leaders will be whining because there will be so many stranded assets in the oil and gas sector. Let's help them now by saying no to any new pipeline, even though we know it'll lead to another conservative temper tantrum. And let's talk about that tired old argument put forward by so many conservatives, the one where they say we should be selling more fossil gas to other countries overseas to get them off using dirtier fuels like coal. There was a report by the International Institute for Sustainable Development in June 2024 that looked at shifting global methane gas markets. There's already gathering momentum overseas for renewable energy projects, and making it easy to use a different polluting fossil fuel may crowd out investments in those renewable projects. The report specifically quotes, "By the time Canadian LNG from most new facilities reaches markets near the end of the decade, global LNG supply is expected to have already outpaced demand, deflating global prices. As a result, Canadian LNG projects may struggle to compete with cheaper incumbent producers such as Qatar and the United States without substantial public subsidies. Do you as a taxpayer feel like giving any more money to fossil gas producers to make polluting more cost-effective for them? Help me out. Where is the benefit to the Canadian taxpayer in that? The fossil oil and gas industry already receives trillions of dollars worldwide in subsidies, and they make huge profits for their shareholders. Really, do you want to help them out by giving them more money? There was a fascinating article a couple of years ago in Energy and Environmental Science that looked at the cost of completely switching to renewables in 145 countries in the world. They estimate the cost of that to be $62 trillion, but the payback would only take 6 years. I know there's going to be a lot of people that splutter about those numbers, and regardless of whether they're 100% accurate or 50% accurate, the point is that with advancing technology, the price of renewable projects continues to fall to a point where building more fossil gas infrastructure in Canada only does one thing: increases the profits of fossil gas companies. It's not going to do anything to help the developing world or our entire planet get cleaner faster. Europe is a great case study when thinking about the ability to rapidly change. When Russian dictator Vladimir Putin started the invasion of Ukraine, Europe was pretty dependent on fossil gas supplied by Russia. Between 2022 and the end of 2023, Europe decreased its import of fossil gas from Russia by 94%. And yes, Europe still uses gas, some small amount from Russia and the rest from other sources, but it's being phased out. In fact, the German cities of Mannheim and Hamburg are working on decommissioning their gas network entirely because their energy transition makes the gas piping in those cities unneeded. I did another video a while back about conservatives falling prey more often to misinformation, and here's another example of that. There's a group called Canada Action that was running ads claiming that Canada's fossil gas would help reduce global emissions. This argument that if Canada sends gas to countries that currently use a lot of coal, those countries could switch to burning a different fossil fuel and the world would be better off. Of course, that claim was ruled false and misleading by Canada's advertising regulator, and the presence of the ads led to a proposal by the NDP to ban fossil fuel advertising, similar to a ban on tobacco advertising. Coal-burning countries are making the gradual switch to renewables already. Yes, it's going to take some time, but not as much time and cost as it would to ship Canadian gas to those countries. The smarter thing to do is to help coal-burning countries move from coal to renewables directly, without the intermediate step of burning Canadian pollutants. The world is changing. The United States is an unreliable partner economically and really with everything, so we need to change in Canada too. But the Canadian economy can't be rooted in fossil fuel extraction if we're going to avoid future economic pain. The energy transition is happening. Canada needs to get on board, and that means no new pipelines, or any other fossil fuel infrastructure for that matter.